It began on a summer afternoon that smelled of rain and lilacs. The kind of day that feels like it's waiting for something to happen. I was standing on my porch, watching the clouds roll in, when she appeared across the fence. Samantha Green, my neighbor. The woman everyone in the cul-de-sac whispered about but didn't really know. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something else about her, a quiet sadness behind her smile, a heaviness that didn't match her bright dresses or the laughter she offered to strangers of that day. She walked over to me, her sandals brushing against the wet grass, her eyes searching mine like she was about to ask for something impossible. And then, in a voice softer than the rain, she said, "Ethan, I need your help. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend." Before I could even breathe, she added, "Just for a few weeks. Please. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind of Heart. Every small click helps stories like this reach hearts that need them." Samantha lived 2 houses down, in a cozy wooden cabin with glowing windows and manicured lawns that looked like something out of a storybook. But inside, things weren't perfect. Her ex-boyfriend, Marcus, had come back to town. He wasn't cruel in the obvious way, not the kind of man who raised his voice, but the kind whose silence could cut deeper than words. He had a habit of making Samantha doubt herself, of making her feel small. She wanted to prove to him, and maybe to herself, that she had moved on, and that's where I came in. I wasn't anyone special. Just a carpenter who worked odd jobs around town, still recovering from a failed engagement that had left me wary of love. But when she looked at me with those pleading eyes, I couldn't say no. I told myself it was just a favor, a little act of kindness. The first date was simple, coffee at the local cafe, where Marcus happened to stop by. Samantha slipped her hand into mine, fingers trembling slightly, and I felt her ex's gaze burning into us from across the room. She leaned her head against my shoulder, laughing at something I hadn't said, and for a moment, the air between us changed. It wasn't just pretend anymore. After that, the pretending became part of our routine. Dinner on her porch. Movie nights that started as an act and ended with her falling asleep beside me. I'd tell her stories about the places I'd worked, the old houses I'd repaired, and she'd listen like no one ever had before. She told me about her mother's garden, about the little bakery she dreamed of opening one day. Each conversation chipped away at the walls we'd both built, but as the days passed, something inside me began to ache, a longing I didn't expect. Because I wasn't just pretending anymore. One Saturday afternoon, Samantha invited me over to help fix a broken railing on her porch. The sun was bright, the smell of cut grass hanging in the air, and as I worked, she stood beside me, sipping lemonade. There was something peaceful about that moment. 2 people, silent but comfortable, each pretending not to care as much as they did. When I finished, she smiled and said, "You're getting too good at this boyfriend thing." And before I could stop myself, I said the words that changed everything: "Then we'll need more than one kiss to make it believable." Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise and something deeper passing through them. For a moment, time froze, the wind stilled, the birds quieted, and then she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a dramatic, movie-perfect kiss. It was soft, trembling, uncertain. But it felt real. Too real. When she pulled back, she whispered, "We can't, this wasn't part of the deal." But the way her hands lingered on my chest told me she wasn't entirely sure of that herself. After that day, things got complicated. We still played our parts when Marcus was around, but behind closed doors, the line between pretending and reality blurred. I'd find her baking late at night, and she'd insist I taste the frosting, laughing when I got it on my nose. She'd tease me about my messy hair. I'd tell her she smiled too little for someone with such a beautiful one. Still, she never talked about what had gone wrong with Marcus, and I didn't push. I could see the way she flinched when his name came up, the way her eyes darkened with memories she wasn't ready to share. Then one evening, he showed up at her house. I was there, fixing a cabinet in her kitchen, when I heard his voice at the door, calm, confident, dripping with false charm. "Sam, we need to talk," he said. She froze. I saw fear flicker across her face before she plastered on that polite smile. "Ethan's here," she said firmly. "We were just having dinner." Marcus's eyes landed on me, narrowing. "The handyman," he scoffed. "You think this little act fools anyone?" I stepped forward, my hands still dusty from work. "It's not an act," I said quietly. The silence that followed was heavy, charged. Samantha's hand found mine under the table, and that small touch gave me the courage to hold my ground. Eventually, Marcus left, muttering something about her making a mistake. When the door finally clicked shut, she turned to me, tears she had been holding back spilling down her cheeks. "I was so scared," she whispered. "Thank you for being here." I wanted to tell her I'd always be there, but the words caught in my throat. The next few weeks were gentler. She started opening up about her past, how Marcus had controlled every part of her life, how he'd made her believe she wasn't good enough to chase her dreams. How she'd spent months trying to rebuild her confidence, piece by piece, and in helping her heal, I realized I was healing too. I'd spent so long believing love was something fragile, something that broke easily. But with her, it felt different, like something you could build with your own hands, nail by nail, moment by moment. One afternoon, we went to the lake outside town. The sun shimmered on the water, and the air smelled like wildflowers. She kicked off her shoes, wading in the shallows, laughing like a child. Watching her then, I realized I didn't just care for her, I loved her. Deeply, quietly, honestly. But just as life started to feel like it was falling into place, everything fell apart. Marcus filed a false report, claiming I had damaged his property during one of our encounters. It was petty revenge, but it put my job and reputation on the line. Suddenly, I was the man the town whispered about, the troublemaker dating the difficult woman. Samantha tried to defend me, but I could see the guilt eating at her. One night, she came to my porch, eyes red. "Maybe it's better if we stop pretending," she said softly. The words hit harder than I expected. "Is that what this was to you?" I asked. "Pretending?" She looked away. "I don't know anymore." And just like that, she walked away. Days turned into weeks. I threw myself into work, trying not to think about her. But everywhere I looked, I saw reminders, her laughter echoing in my head, the smell of her vanilla perfume lingering in my truck. I missed her more than I wanted to admit. Then one morning, I found a small box on my doorstep. Inside was a note in her handwriting. "You once said love is something you build. I'm ready to build it now. If you'll still help me." Underneath the note was a small wooden keychain, a miniature heart carved from the same oak I'd used to fix her porch railing. I didn't even think. I grabbed my jacket and ran to her house. She was standing on the porch, that same place where everything had begun, her eyes glistening in the sunlight. When she saw me, she smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Ethan," she said, "I'm sorry I made you doubt what we had. I was scared. But you were right, we need more than one kiss. We need a lifetime." I didn't answer with words. I just kissed her, not pretending, not afraid. Just real, and this time, it wasn't the beginning of an act. It was the beginning of everything. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind people that love, healing, and kindness are still out there, even in the quiet corners of our everyday lives. Special request: comment below with the words "Love is something we build" if you believe that every second chance deserves a real ending.